Massey Ferguson 35. The year was 1960, and the fields of the Midwest were still wrapped in a soft morning haze when the Massey Ferguson 35 began to appear on family farms. Built in American plants and sold for just a little over $2,000, it became an affordable workhorse for small growers across Ohio, Iowa, and Illinois. At sunrise, its red and gray frame often rolled out of the shed, moving gently across long rows of dark soil. The MF-35 carried a Perkins 3-cylinder diesel engine, just under 2.5 liters, with a steady 30-plus horsepower at the PTO. Some versions used a 4-cylinder gasoline engine. Its compact size made it easy to maneuver between barns, orchard rows, and tight corners where the big machines simply could not go. It wasn't built for massive acreage, but it had enough strength to plow a few fields and haul small wagons without complaint. I still remember the sound of that engine in the early mornings, back in the summer of '62. My grandfather pulled the choke, turned the key, and the tractor answered with a warm, even rumble. The smell of warm diesel mixed with the damp earth as we rolled toward the cornfield. Dew gathered on the hood, shining like tiny beads under the rising sun. He adjusted the gear lever with a quiet motion, and the little tractor eased forward, drawing a small plow through the soft ground. Moments like that still stay with me, drifting through memory like an old sepia film. Today, many MF-35 tractors remain in service on small farms or rest proudly in private collections. Some cut pasture grass. Some tow light wagons. Some simply stand as reminders of a time when simple tools and steady hands shaped the life of a family farm. They may be old, but they carry the spirit of an era when durability mattered more than size. And as the fields grew wider and the years moved on, a new generation of Massey Ferguson tractors stepped forward, ready for the next chapter. Massey Ferguson 135. By the mid-1960s, farms across the Midwest were changing. Yields were growing, and families needed a tractor with a little more strength. That was when the Massey Ferguson 135 arrived. It rolled out of the factory with a confidence that came from solid engineering and a reputation already forming in small towns from Illinois to southern Minnesota. Its price was still within reach, and many farmers saw it as the natural next step after the old MF-35. The 135 carried the Perkins 3-cylinder engine, a touch larger and stronger than the one before it. It produced a little over 40 horsepower at the PTO, enough to handle plows, mowers, and balers that once felt heavy for smaller machines. Its steering felt light. Its frame felt firm. And its hydraulic system, reliable through long seasons, gave it a sense of purpose that many farmers trusted without question. I remember the first time I heard a 135 working in the distance. It was the summer of '68. Someone down the road was cutting hay, and the sound drifted across the fields in slow waves. The rhythm was steady, warm, almost like a heartbeat laid over the land. Later that season, I sat on the fender while my uncle drove one across a patch of wheat stubble. Dust rose behind us, soft and golden, catching the last light of the evening. The tractor moved forward with calm certainty, as if it knew exactly what the land needed from it. Many of these tractors are still alive today. Some look worn from decades of service, but a careful hand can bring them back to life. On quiet farms in Iowa and Missouri, you can still find a few of them pulling small wagons, powering augers, or tending gardens kept for tradition more than necessity. They are reminders of a time when strength came in compact forms and machines were built to last more than one generation. And as the work on those farms grew heavier and the harvests more demanding, another Massey Ferguson stepped forward, ready to carry even greater loads. Massey Ferguson 175. As the early 1970s arrived, farms across the Midwest felt the push for more power. Fields stretched farther. Implements grew heavier. And families needed a tractor that could meet the demands of longer days and larger harvests. That was when the Massey Ferguson 175 stepped forward, standing proud with a taller frame and a confidence shaped by years of steady engineering. The 175 carried a strong 4-cylinder diesel engine, built to deliver more than 60 horsepower at the PTO. It offered a smooth pull, even through deep soil or heavy hay. Farmers trusted its cooling system, its hydraulics, and its weight, which kept the tractor steady on rolling ground. It was the type of machine that felt comfortable with hard work, the kind that filled long summer days without complaint. I still remember a late August afternoon when a friend of my father ran his 175 through a field of second-cut alfalfa. The air was thick with the scent of sweet hay, and the sun hung low, warm and gentle. The tractor's deep tone moved across the field, steady and reassuring. I rode along once, sitting on the metal fender while the wind carried bits of alfalfa past my face. Beneath me, the tractor felt solid, sure of itself, as though it had known the land for decades. Today, many 175s still work on smaller farms that have held on to their traditions. Some power haybines or pull wagons during harvest. Some sit under shelters, their paint faded but their engines ready to start on the first turn. They stand as proof that power does not always come from size alone, it comes from reliability, patience, and years of honest labor. And as those years moved on, and as farmers looked again for something practical and compact, another Massey Ferguson arrived, built with the heart of a family farm in mind. Massey Ferguson 165. By the late 1960s, many family farms were expanding their acreage. The work felt heavier. The days felt longer. That was when the Massey Ferguson 165 found its place on the land. It stood taller than the 135, with a broader stance and a quiet strength that farmers noticed the moment they climbed into the seat. Its price was higher, yet still fair for what it offered, a dependable partner for bigger fields. The 165 carried a stronger Perkins engine, a smooth 4-cylinder diesel with the kind of pull that made tough jobs feel lighter. It delivered more than 50 horsepower at the PTO, giving farmers the confidence to run larger plows, wider mowers, and heavier balers. The steering felt balanced. The ride felt steady. And the tractor moved down the rows with a calm, patient rhythm, almost as if it understood the land beneath it. I remember watching a neighbor run his 165 during a long July afternoon. The heat shimmered above the ground, and the air smelled of dry hay and warm iron. The tractor's deep tone carried far across the valley. As it worked through the tall grass, dust curled behind the tires in slow, rolling clouds. Later that evening, he let me ride along the edge of the field. The sun was sinking, turning the sky into a soft orange curtain. I felt the tractor's steady rumble beneath my feet, a kind of quiet promise that the day's work would always find its way to completion. Today, the 165 remains a favorite among collectors and farmers who appreciate strength without excess. Many still run in hayfields, powering old balers that refuse to retire. Some sit in barns, waiting for a son or grandson to bring them back to life. Others stand proudly at small-town shows, paint faded but spirit intact. They carry the memory of a time when machines were honest, and every hour of work left a mark on both metal and man. And as seasons changed and farms grew even larger, another Massey Ferguson stepped in, ready to shoulder the weight of the years ahead. Massey Ferguson 230. By the mid-1970s, many families were searching for a tractor that felt simple again. Something smaller than the big field machines, yet stronger than the early models of the 1960s. The Massey Ferguson 230 arrived in that moment, built for the rhythm of everyday chores on a family farm. It was modest in size, affordable, and trusted by farmers who needed a dependable hand. The 230 used a 3-cylinder Perkins diesel engine, giving a little over 30 horsepower at the PTO. It was not designed for heavy plowing or wide fields, but it handled yard work, mowing, and small acreage tillage with a calm reliability. Its steering felt light. Its frame felt tight and confident. Many farmers appreciated how easily it slipped through barns, pasture gates, and orchard rows without ever feeling cramped or strained. I remember an early spring morning when a neighbor used his 230 to prepare a garden patch behind his house. The ground was still cool, and a thin mist clung to the edges of the field. The tractor's soft hum blended with the quiet sounds of waking birds. As he guided it across the soil, the earth opened in clean, gentle lines. I stood near the fence, feeling the warmth of the engine reach me through the morning breeze. Moments like that captured the heart of family farming: steady hands, simple tools, and land tended with care. Today, many 230s still serve on small homesteads across the Midwest. Some mow roadside ditches. Some pull wagons loaded with firewood. Others rest beside old barns, waiting for another season of light work. Even with faded paint and worn seats, they carry the spirit of practicality that defined so many family farms in the 1970s. And as chores grew, and as farms asked for a little more strength from a compact frame, another Massey Ferguson stepped onto the fields, ready for the next task. Massey Ferguson 245. By the late 1970s, many farmers wanted a compact tractor that could still handle real work. Something dependable, with more strength than the early utility models, yet small enough to fit the rhythm of a family farm. The Massey Ferguson 245 arrived at just the right time. It carried a quiet confidence, built for long days and steady seasons. The 245 used a Perkins 3-cylinder diesel engine, known for its smooth pull and calm tone. It offered around 40 horsepower at the PTO, giving farmers enough power for mowing hay, tilling gardens, or pulling small wagons across rolling ground. The tractor stood firm on its wheels, and many owners trusted it through muddy springs and dry summers. Its controls felt familiar, its frame solid, its work honest. I remember an afternoon in early June when I saw a 245 running along the edge of a hayfield. The air was warm, and the scent of clover drifted through the valley. The tractor moved with steady purpose, the kind of motion that seems almost patient. I rode along once, sitting behind the operator as the wind swept across the field. The hum of the engine mixed with the rustle of tall grass, creating a quiet song of work and land in memory. Even now, when I hear a similar engine, it carries me back to that long, golden evening. Today, the 245 remains a favorite for small acreage farmers and collectors who appreciate strength in a compact form. Some tractors still run daily chores, feeding livestock, clearing snow, tending small fields. Others rest proudly at county fairs, their faded red paint telling stories of decades spent under open skies. They stand as symbols of a time when tractors were built to last and to be trusted. And as the years moved forward, and farms continued to blend tradition with change, another Massey Ferguson appeared, ready to serve in its own quiet way. Massey Ferguson 65. Long before the tractors of the 1970s filled the fields, the Massey Ferguson 65 had already earned a place in the hearts of many farmers. It appeared in the late 1950s, during a time when family farms depended on machines that could do almost everything. The 65 stood tall for its size, built with a solid frame and an honest sense of purpose. Many farmers chose it because it felt dependable from the very first hour. The MF65 carried a strong 4-cylinder engine, offering more power than most compact tractors of its time. It delivered enough strength for plowing, mowing, and pulling heavy wagons across uneven ground. Even with its larger build, it handled smoothly, steering with a gentle touch that surprised many operators. It became the kind of machine families relied on through planting, harvest, and the quiet work that filled the seasons in between. I remember standing at the edge of a wheat field one afternoon, watching a neighbor run his 65 down the long rows. The sun hung low, turning the dust into a soft, golden haze. The tractor's deep, steady sound rolled across the valley like a familiar voice. Later, he let me climb onto the fender for a short ride. The seat creaked. The engine warmed the air around us. And the field stretched in every direction, peaceful and wide. The memory lingers, simple, gentle, held close by time. Many 65s still live on today. Some work small patches of land behind old barns. Some help with chores that larger machines no longer bother with. Others rest in sheds, waiting for a new set of hands to bring them back to life. Their paint may fade, but the stories remain as stories of long summers, steady labor, and families who shaped the land one field at a time. And as the years continued, and farms looked for tractors that blended strength with compact design, another Massey Ferguson stepped forward, ready to take its turn on the land. Massey Ferguson 50. Before many families knew the newer models, the Massey Ferguson 50 had already become a trusted presence on small farms. It appeared in the late 1950s, during a time when machinery was growing stronger but still held the simplicity of earlier decades. The MF50 stood between generations, modern enough to handle bigger jobs, yet gentle and familiar in the way older tractors once felt. The tractor carried a sturdy 4-cylinder gasoline or diesel engine, offering a solid amount of power for its size. It wasn't meant to dominate large acres, but it worked faithfully on chores that filled the everyday rhythm of a family farm. It pulled plows through soft spring ground. It mowed pasture grass in long summer heat. It hauled wagons loaded with feed or bales, always steady, always patient. Farmers admired its balance and the smooth way it moved across uneven fields. I remember a cool morning in early May when a friend of my father used his MF50 to turn over a garden plot behind his house. The smell of fresh earth rose with each pass. Birds called from the fence line. The tractor's gentle tone drifted across the yard, calm and familiar, like a voice you have known all your life. Later that day, I rode along for a few minutes, feeling the quiet strength of the engine beneath my feet. The sun warmed the metal fenders, and the world around us moved in slow, peaceful motions. Today, many MF-50s still survive, kept alive by farmers who appreciate the honesty of older machines. Some work gardens. Some clear snow. Some pull small wagons along gravel driveways lined with cottonwoods. Others sit in barns, protected from time, waiting for the chance to run again. Their legacy is not in their size, but in the years of faithful service they gave to families across the Midwest. And as farms continued to grow and tools grew more specialized, another Massey Ferguson soon arrived, ready to carry its own story into the fields. Massey Ferguson 235. As the late 1970s moved toward a new decade, farmers began looking for a compact tractor that could manage daily chores without wasting fuel or taking too much space in the barn. The Massey Ferguson 235 fit that need perfectly. It was practical, simple, and built with the quiet confidence that many families trusted. For small farms and homesteads, it felt like the right tool at the right time. The 235 used a 3-cylinder Perkins engine, producing a little over 30 horsepower at the PTO. It had enough strength for mowing hayfields, turning gardens, and pulling light wagons along gravel roads. Its size made it easy to handle near barns and sheds, where bigger tractors felt clumsy. Many farmers appreciated how quickly it started on cold mornings and how smoothly it ran during long, warm afternoons. It was a machine that didn't ask for much, yet always gave enough. I remember watching a 235 work along the edge of a soybean field one evening. The sun was low, painting everything with a soft orange glow. The tractor moved slowly, almost thoughtfully, its engine humming in a steady, familiar rhythm. I stood by the fence, feeling the warm breeze carry the scent of dry soil and summer air. Later, when the operator parked the tractor near the shed, the engine ticked gently as it cooled. That sound, soft and fading, stayed with me, quiet reminders of how work and memory often blend together. Today, many 235s still run on small farms across the Midwest. Some handle chores that larger machines have left behind. Some serve as dependable backups when the big tractors break down. Others rest in barns, their paint worn thin, yet ready with a turn of the key. They stand as symbols of practicality and patience, qualities that shaped countless family farms through changing times. And as those farms continued their journey, looking for a tractor that could carry both memory and purpose, another Massey Ferguson waited to close the story, strong, steady, and timeless. Massey Ferguson 240. When the early 1980s arrived, the family farm was changing once again. Costs were rising. Fields were shifting. Yet many families still needed a compact tractor they could trust every single day. The Massey Ferguson 240 stepped into that moment with a quiet strength. It carried the familiar red and gray colors, but there was something steadier in the way it stood, simple, dependable, and built for honest work. The 240 used the well-known 3-cylinder Perkins diesel engine, a design that had already earned the respect of farmers across the Midwest. It produced around 40 horsepower at the PTO, enough for mowing hay, hauling wagons, and tending gardens that had fed families for generations. It was easy to steer, easy to maintain, and gentle on fuel. Many farmers chose it not because it was big, but because it always seemed ready to help morning after morning, season after season. I remember seeing a 240 at work during a crisp October afternoon. A neighbor was hauling firewood from a stand of oak trees behind his pasture. The air smelled of dry leaves and cooling earth. The tractor moved slowly along the fence line, its engine steady and warm. I walked beside it for a while, listening to the hum that rose and faded with the shape of the land. When he stopped to load another stack of logs, the sun dipped behind the trees, turning everything gold. The moment felt quiet and grounded, like something only a lifetime on the land could teach you. Today, the 240 is cherished by collectors, hobby farmers, and families who remember the years when machinery lived long lives. Many still run daily chores. Some rest in barns, waiting for the next generation to take the seat. Others shine at county fairs, carrying the pride of decades gone by. They remind us that strength does not always roar, sometimes it comes in steady hands and simple machines. And so, from the MF-35 of the early days to the faithful 240 that carried us into a new era, this journey tells a story of people and land growing together. These tractors did more than work the fields. They shaped lives. They held memories. They carried families through seasons of hope and hardship. If you ever drove one of these machines, or watched someone you love guide one down a long road, feel free to share that memory. Those stories keep the spirit of the Midwest alive, turning old fields and faded days into something warm that we can still hold close.